It started with a grocery bag, a hot afternoon, and a boy who thought his family's privilege gave him the right to take what wasn't his. His mother, an HOA Karen with a long history of targeting people who looked like me, stood nearby, smirking as her son shouted slurs and demanded my food. Within minutes, they were calling the cops, fully convinced they'd ruin my day. What they didn't know was that I wasn't just another neighbor. I wasn't just a man coming home from the store. I was the police commander, and this time, their lies weren't going to save them. I had lived in this neighborhood for nearly 5 years, quietly minding my own business, paying my dues, and rarely attending HOA meetings. For the most part, I enjoyed my home, my garden, and the peaceful routine of walking my dog every evening. But if there was one shadow that hung over this community, it was Karen. She was the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, and her reputation for policing every detail of her neighbors' lives was legendary. She measured lawns with rulers, left threatening notes on doors, and made more calls to code enforcement than anyone else on record. Her teenage son was a mirror of her arrogance. Raised to believe rules never applied to him, he strutted around the neighborhood like he owned it. He cut across lawns, vandalized property, and yet no one dared confront him, because Karen always swooped in to defend his behavior, spinning stories that painted him as a victim. That day, I had just returned from the grocery store. My arms were full of bags, fresh produce, bread, and meat I had been planning for a family dinner that weekend. As I reached my driveway, Karen's son approached, demanding I hand over a bag of snacks. At first, I thought he was joking, but the sneer on his face told me otherwise. When I refused, he spat out a racial slur loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Karen, standing a few feet away, didn't stop him. She laughed, and when I calmly told her son to walk away, she pulled out her phone with a wicked grin. I knew what was coming. She was about to call the police, on me. The situation escalated in seconds. Karen clutched her phone like it was a weapon, speaking loudly enough for her voice to carry across the cul-de-sac. She told the operator that a dangerous man had threatened her son and tried to steal food. Her son added his own performance, clutching his arm dramatically as though I had grabbed him. A few neighbors peeked from their windows, and I could see the familiar mix of curiosity and discomfort. They had seen this play out before. Karen spinning lies, her son backing her up, and someone else paying the price. Inside, my frustration boiled. I had worked decades in law enforcement, fighting for justice in a system that too often turned its back on people like me. I had risen through the ranks, not just with determination, but with the belief that integrity mattered. And yet, here I was, reduced in their eyes to a stereotype, someone they thought could be erased with a single phone call. I didn't say much as Karen smirked, certain victory in her eyes. "You'll regret ever talking back to us," she hissed, her son snickering behind her. I calmly placed my grocery bags inside my front door, then stood by my porch, arms folded, waiting. Minutes later, the familiar wail of sirens echoed down the street. 2 patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing. Karen waved them over like she had orchestrated a grand performance. She rushed to the officers, pointing at me, screaming that I had attacked her son, that I was dangerous and aggressive. But here's where her plan began to unravel. The moment the officers stepped out, they recognized me. Their stiff postures softened, confusion flickering in their eyes. One of them had trained under me. Another had been on my task force just months ago. They didn't rush to cuff me. Instead, they listened, carefully, while Karen and her son grew louder, angrier, more desperate. The neighbors were watching closely now. Karen realized the tide wasn't turning in her favor. She doubled down, shouting about how people like me didn't belong in this neighborhood, her words dripping with racism that silenced even her usual allies. Her son echoed her, throwing slurs like stones, unaware of the hole they were digging, and still, I remained silent, letting the truth unfold. The breaking point came when Karen demanded that the officers arrest me immediately. She screamed, "Do your job! Put him in handcuffs! He threatened my child!" Her voice cracked with fury, certain she had won. That's when I finally stepped forward. Calmly, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my badge, and held it up for everyone to see. The silence that fell over the cul-de-sac was heavy, almost suffocating. "I am the commander of this precinct," I said firmly, my voice steady and unshakable. "And what I've just witnessed is a false report, racial harassment, and attempted intimidation." Karen's face drained of color. Her son froze, the smirk gone from his lips. The officers exchanged glances. This wasn't just another neighborhood squabble. This was their boss, standing before them, calling out the lies that had nearly escalated into a wrongful arrest. Neighbors stepped out of their homes, emboldened by the revelation. Whispers spread like wildfire. The commander lives here? She lied again? Did you hear what her son said? Karen stuttered, backpedaling, trying to spin the story yet again. But it was too late. Every word she had spat was now evidence against her. The officers documented everything, from her false statements to her son's outbursts. She had called for the power of the law to destroy me, and instead it exposed her for what she truly was. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift. Karen was fined heavily for filing a false report, her son's behavior documented and submitted to juvenile review. The HOA board, once hesitant to act against her, could no longer ignore the chaos she brought to the community. For the first time in years, she was stripped of her position. Her influence shattered. As for me, I continued living my life, walking my dog, tending my garden, and greeting the neighbors who now looked at me with a newfound respect. They had seen what happens when racism festers unchecked, and how easily lies can destroy lives if left unchallenged. What struck me most was the silence that followed. Karen no longer patrolled the neighborhood with her phone in hand. Her son no longer swaggered through the streets with entitlement. Their power had vanished the moment their lies collided with the truth. But the story wasn't just about them. It was about a community forced to confront its own silence. About neighbors who realized they could no longer watch from behind curtains when injustice unfolded before them. It was about the weight of a badge, yes, but also the power of integrity, of standing firm when others try to strip away your dignity. Racism doesn't always arrive in sweeping headlines. Sometimes it shows up in a bag of groceries, in a neighbor's laugh, in a phone call meant to weaponize fear, and sometimes it backfires. So I ask you, when the next Karen shows up in your life, when lies threaten to overshadow the truth, will you stay silent, or will you stand firm?